My child, before you scroll any further, stop. Not in a minute. Now. Because something is about to happen in the next few moments that you were never supposed to miss. And if you leave, you may not get this chance again. Your thumb was already moving. I know. One more scroll, then sleep. That was the plan. But something stopped you. A small resistance. Like a hand resting gently over yours, saying, "Wait, that was not your phone. That was not the algorithm. That was me. I am not here to waste your time tonight. I am here because there is something I have wanted to tell you for a long time, and tonight, finally, you are still enough to hear it." You have been running. Not the kind of running anyone applauds. No finish line, no medal. Just the running of a person who wakes up already behind and goes to bed still catching up. You have gotten so good at moving fast that you forgot what stillness even feels like in your own chest, haven't you? Be honest with me for a moment. When was the last time you sat in a quiet room and didn't reach for your phone within 30 seconds? I'm not asking to shame you. I'm asking because I already know the answer, and I want you to know it too. I did not bring you here by accident. I know how strange that sounds coming from a video you almost skipped. But I have never needed grand entrances to reach the people I love. Tonight, I am using this. Here it is. You have quietly decided that I am somewhere else. Not gone. You wouldn't put it that dramatically. Just occupied elsewhere, tending to someone whose life looks more finished than yours. And in that quiet decision, you have started treating your own hope like something embarrassing to still be holding on to. I want to correct that before we go any further. Let me show you something instead of just telling you. Picture the kitchen. Late, the light over the stove the only one still on. You are standing there with a cup of coffee that went cold an hour ago, and you are not thinking about the coffee. You are thinking about whether any of this is going anywhere. I was in that kitchen with you, not doing anything dramatic, just there, the way I have always been there, in rooms you thought were empty. My silence was never whose, my absence. Say that back to yourself later tonight, when the noise returns. Write it down if you need to. You have wondered whether I noticed the small things. The night you replayed a conversation until 2 a.m., turning it over and over like a stone in your pocket. The morning you forced a smile because the day required one, and nobody asked if you had one to spare. The prayer you whispered so quietly you weren't sure it counted as a prayer at all. I noticed. Every one of them. There is a reason I let you carry some of that weight, instead of removing it the moment you asked. It is not because I enjoy watching you struggle. It is because some rooms in you can only be built while you're still standing in the dark, and I was not going to let you skip the one season that would make you strong enough for what's coming. You have been quietly hoping for something, not a miracle exactly, something smaller and more honest. A sign that you haven't been forgotten. I know, because I have been listening to that hope even when you never said it out loud. Here is what I need you to understand before we go any further tonight. And this part matters more than anything I have said so far. Nothing about your life has been random. Not the friendship that ended before its time. Not the door that shut in your face when you had already convinced yourself it would open. Not even the mistake you still replay at 3 in the morning. The one you think disqualifies you from anything good. What feels like rejection may actually be my protection. You may feel, right now, like you are simply a person watching a video, but some part of you already suspects this is more than that. Trust it. That instinct is not superstition, it is recognition. So here is what I am asking. Not your whole life, not a leap of faith tonight, just the next few moments. Turn the volume up if you need to. Let the room go quiet around you. The silence you've been afraid of was never empty. It was preparing you for what comes next. There is a lie you have believed about the silence in your life, and I want to break it open right now before it costs you another year of your peace. You think I have been quiet. I haven't. You have just been standing in a room too loud to hear anything but the noise itself. Think about your average morning. The alarm, then the phone, then a feed of other people's opinions before your feet have even touched the floor. By the time you've had your first cup of coffee, 40 different voices have already told you what to think, what to fear, what to compare yourself against. In all that noise, how could you have heard something as quiet as peace settling in your chest, or a door closing softly instead of slamming? You called these things bad luck, timing, coincidence. I called them mine. Picture the car, parked outside your own house, engine off, and you just sitting there for 10 extra minutes before going in. You don't even remember what you were thinking about. I do. I was in that car with you, doing something you couldn't see yet. There are prayers you have prayed that I have not answered the way you wanted, not because I forgot them, because answering them the way you asked would have handed you something you weren't ready to carry yet. Think of a father standing at the door with the car keys, and his child, maybe 16, begging for them. The child doesn't understand why the answer is no. The father isn't withholding love. He's withholding a set of keys that could get his child killed on a road he hasn't learned to drive yet. I have done that for you more times than you will ever be told. Here's where I need to be honest with you about something you've been getting wrong for a while now. You have been treating every delay in your life like a denial, and it has been quietly breaking something in you. A stubborn kind of hope that used to come easily and now has to be fought for every single day. I want that hope back, not the naive kind that ignores real pain, the steady kind that keeps walking even when the road bends out of sight. Let me tell you about a farmer, because this matters more than it sounds like it should. A farmer plants a seed and does not dig it up every morning to check whether it's growing. He knows that if he keeps disturbing the soil to look for proof, he will kill the very thing he's trying to grow. He waters, he watches the sky, he does the work that is his to do, but he does not force the seed to prove itself before its time. You have been digging up your own soil every single morning, checking for evidence that something is happening beneath the surface of your life. I am asking you to stop. Here is the part I most need you to hear tonight. You think you failed. No, you survived. Read that again. You have spent so long calling certain seasons of your life failures, the job that ended, the relationship that didn't work, the plan that fell apart in your hands, that you never stopped to notice you were still standing after all of it, still here, still capable of feeling something when a video like this reaches you. That is not failure, that is survival, and survival was always the actual victory, even when it didn't look like one from the outside. I have never measured you by whether things worked out the way you planned. I have measured you by whether you kept walking anyway. There is another reason I brought you here today. One that has to do with something you've believed about yourself for a long time. Something that was never true, no matter how convincing it has felt in the quiet hours when no one else was around to argue with you about it. The waiting was never wasted. It was building the very thing you're about to need. There is a lie you've been carrying, and it has been quieter and more convincing than most lies, because it never announces itself as one. It just settles into the back of your mind and starts narrating your life without ever asking your permission. Maybe you've started believing you aren't enough. Think about the last time you scrolled through someone else's life and felt that small, sharp tightening in your chest. A kitchen that looked cleaner than yours. A relationship that looked easier than yours. You didn't see their arguments at midnight. You saw a photograph, and you let a photograph tell you something true about your own worth. You saw one picture. I know the whole story. Maybe you've believed I forgot you. That somewhere along the way, while you were surviving one hard season after another, I moved on to someone else's story and left yours running on autopilot in the background. You don't say this out loud, but it's there, isn't it? In the way you've quietly stopped expecting good things to happen to you specifically. You think you were abandoned. No, you were being kept. There is a difference, and it is the difference between a wound and a scar. Think of a woman I knew. Her story is not unlike yours, who spent 3 years certain I had walked away from her. Every prayer felt like it hit a ceiling and came back down unanswered. Years later, she realized that every closed door in those 3 years had kept her out of a life that looked successful from the outside and was empty on the inside. She didn't feel kept at the time. It took distance to see the difference. I keep what I have not yet given. Maybe you've believed your best days are behind you, that whatever window existed for the life you actually wanted has already closed, and now you're simply managing what's left. I never said that, not once, not in any version of your story that I have written. The moments you regret most, the ones that replay at inconvenient hours, are not disqualifying evidence against you. They are raw material. I have never wasted a single piece of anyone's story, including yours. Think about Joseph for a moment. Not the whole story, just one image. A man sitting in a prison cell that smelled like stone and mildew, forgotten by the very people he had helped, with no evidence in front of him that anything was being prepared. If you had shown him, in that cell, what his life would look like 10 years later, he would not have believed you. I did not need him to believe it. I only needed him to survive the cell. You are not the exception to that pattern. You are the continuation of it. I prepare people before I prepare blessings. That is not punishment. That is me caring more about who you become than about how fast your life looks finished. Stop measuring your worth by how quickly things are moving. Start measuring it by what is actually being built beneath the surface. The patience you didn't have 5 years ago. The compassion that only exists because you know exactly what a hard season feels like from the inside out. You were never behind. You were never forgotten. You were never a mistake that slipped through unnoticed. What I want to tell you next is something I need you to remember every single day. Not just tonight, but 3 weeks from now, on an ordinary Tuesday, when the noise creeps back in. The lie kept you small. What comes next will show you how to actually live. Let's talk about today. Not the 5-year plan, not the future version of you that has everything figured out. Just today, because that is where I actually meet people. Before you answer that message sitting in your inbox, pause. The one you've reread 3 times, drafting a reply in your head that keeps changing depending on your mood. Ask whether you're responding out of clarity or out of hurt. Those 2 things sound almost the same. They are not. Before you make the decision you've been circling for weeks, pray, not a performance. An honest conversation. The kind you'd have with someone who already knows what you're about to say, but wants to hear it from you anyway. Before you assume the worst about a silence, a delay, a look on someone's face you can't quite read, come to me first, before you finish building the worst-case scenario your mind has already started on. Before. Almost every regret you carry didn't come from a bad decision made carefully. It came from a decision made in a hurry, before there was room to think clearly. Panic feels urgent. Peace rarely does. Picture the last argument you had with someone you love, the words that left your mouth before you'd finished thinking them, the ones you wished you could pull back out of the air the second they landed. That wasn't a bad person speaking. That was a rushed one. Here is what I actually want from you today. Not a full life overhaul before tomorrow morning. 5 things. Small, specific, doable. Spend 5 minutes with me. Phone face down, talking to me the way you'd talk to someone who already loves you and isn't grading the conversation. Forgive someone, not because what they did was fine. Forgive because you are tired of carrying them around in your head rent-free. Put the phone down tonight, at least for a stretch of the evening. Long enough to remember what your own thoughts sound like without something interrupting them every few minutes. Stop comparing. Comparison is not a moral failing. It is a thief, and it has been quietly stealing your gratitude for things you would otherwise be genuinely thankful for. Choose peace, specifically, in the moment today when the old anxiety starts rising. Choose it the way you'd put on a coat before walking into the cold. Peace grows where panic ends. A farmer doesn't dig up his seed every morning to check on it, but there's a piece of that story worth returning to. The seed isn't doing nothing underground. It's doing the one thing it can only do in the dark, growing roots deep enough to survive what's coming above ground later. You are in that stage right now, with several things in your life that don't look like much yet. You think today is just today, an ordinary day, nothing riding on it. No, today is the rehearsal for who you'll be when it actually counts. Nobody becomes brave the day of the emergency. They become brave in the 100 small, ordinary days before it, the ones where they chose the pause instead of the panic, the forgiveness instead of the grudge, the 5 quiet minutes instead of the scroll. When the real test comes, you will not rise to the occasion. You will fall back on whatever you've already practiced. I'm not asking you to fix your whole life today. I'm asking for one honest step, one pause before you react, one prayer before you decide. Because tomorrow, I want to show you what happens when you finally trust me completely, not as an idea you agree with, but in the small, unglamorous decisions that make up an actual day. You've spent a long time trying to control outcomes you were never meant to carry alone. Tonight, just start with today. I'll take care of the rest, the way I always have. My child, I want to take you back to a few nights you probably still remember, even if you've never said them out loud to anyone. Remember the night you cried until there was nothing left, sitting on the edge of the bed or the bathroom floor, the tile cold under you, feeling like the walls were the only witness to how broken you actually felt. You thought you were alone in that room. You weren't. I was there, not fixing it in the moment, not the way you probably wished I would. Just there, present, aware, holding the full weight of that night, even when you couldn't feel my hands doing it. Remember the morning you almost gave up. Not on anything grand, necessarily. Maybe just on trying. You sat on the edge of the mattress for a long time before your feet ever touched the floor. You dragged yourself through that day anyway, half convinced it was pointless. I saw that. I saw exactly how much effort it took just to exist, and it did not go unnoticed, even though no one applauded you for it, because no one ever applauds the days that only require survival. Remember the prayer you whispered so quietly you weren't even sure it counted, the one you assumed disappeared into silence because nothing changed right away. I heard every word of it. Not the polished version you wished you could pray, the real one, stumbling, half-formed, honest. Here is something I want to give you before this message ends. There was a woman I mentioned earlier. You'd recognize pieces of her story in your own, if you're honest, who used to sit in her car in the driveway some evenings, engine off, not ready to go inside yet, wondering if any of it was going anywhere. Years later, she said the waiting had built something in her that ease never could have, not because the pain was good, because she didn't quit in the middle of it. You are not that far from your own version of that same sentence. I know there have been long stretches where it felt like I was somewhere else, tending to a different story, while yours sat unattended on a shelf collecting dust. I was never elsewhere. I was walking directly beside you through every version of that pain, even the versions you've never told a single person about. One day you will look back at this exact season, the one that feels unfinished right now, and you will understand. I was protecting you the entire time, not from all pain, but from becoming someone harder, someone colder, someone who stopped believing good things were still possible. You are still here, still soft enough to feel this message land somewhere real instead of bouncing off you. That is proof of something being protected in you. Everything you heard tonight, the kitchen, the car, the farmer, the cell, none of it was random. It was all pointing to the same thing. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being kept. So, my child, do not ignore what you felt tonight. I sent this because you needed exactly this, at exactly this moment. If any part of tonight reached something real in you, write "I will listen" in the comments below. Not for me. Do it for you, so 3 weeks from now you have proof, in your own words, that tonight meant something. I am already waiting in your tomorrow. I am not finished writing your story. If tonight found you, someone else out there needs to hear it too. Like this video, subscribe, and share it with them.